Welcome to Hear God Every Day. I'm your host, Sarah Whitten. Get comfortable, open your heart, and let's talk about how we can be more sensitive to God's voice in our everyday life. This week is called You're Not in Control, and That's a Good Thing. Does anybody feel out of control? Like whether it's out of control of your schedule, of your children, of your to-do list, whatever it may be, there's those things where we feel like, okay, we've had that moment where we're like, all right, I want this to happen. I have a vision for this. Maybe it's a setback. Maybe it's a struggle that you're in right now. And you're like, I have a vision for this. This is how I want this to go. And so naturally what we do is we double down our efforts and we're like, okay, here are the things that I think that I can do that will help guide it in that direction, or I'm feeling pressed for time. So here are the things that I'm going to do to adjust my life so that I don't feel pressed for time, whatever it may be, big, small. And we get in this place of, okay, there's a problem. I am going to fix it. And as in my own kind of tweaking and adjusting our new rhythm for this season, as I encountered this moment of like, man, I'm changing different things each week and it just feels like nothing is working. I just feel kind of like, everything is coming so fast and it's a little bit out of control. I felt the Lord kind of ask this question, which I love it because I feel like God so often speaks in questions rather than answers. Actually, okay, this is a little tidbit for someone. So this was, we were in the middle of homeschool yesterday and I spoke these words to our son. And as I spoke them, I was like, ooh, that's got God all over it. But I told him that the key isn't in the answers. It's in knowing the process to find the answers, right? It doesn't matter what the answers are if you know where to go in the process by which you come to those answers. So often God comes at us when we are sitting in our questions and trying to solve them with questions because he knows that the process of working all of that out is actually going to bring us to the answer in a more valuable way than just giving us the answer. So, as I was sitting here with our schedule and thinking okay, God, I don't know what's going on. I need more time. And, none of these things I'm trying are working. And I feel just so out of control. And I felt the Lord ask, when have you ever seen me do a miracle in your life where you've felt in control? He asked me, when have I ever seen him do a miracle, do anything big, any, testimony that I can recall? And out of all those times, he asked, were there any times of those that I felt in control? And you may be thinking about your own life right now, all of your testimonies, the miracles that God has done in your life, the miracles God has done for people you know. And as you're thinking about those, when you think about your involvement or your level of control in the situation, often it's zero, right? And that is so encouraging to me because if you are in a place of feeling out of control, guess what? Nobody has ever been in a place of control when God has been moving in a miraculous way, because ultimately it is in his control. And to go with that, I was reading on Sunday morning, actually, in Isaiah. And, these words are so familiar to us, but God just kind of put something new about them on my heart. I love how his living word is so great like that. But it's in Isaiah 55, verse 8, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways, declares the Lord." A lot of times we think that God is going to approach and do things in the way that we would, because we have a way in our mind that we've decided like, oh, this is best. This is the answer. So we expect God to like work within our confines. Thank goodness he doesn't. He says, for as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways and my thoughts than your thoughts. And I got this picture of like roads, like when you get into larger cities and there are roads that kind of crisscross all over each other and overpasses that are up high and then roads that are at the street level that kind of cut underneath. And when you are on those lower roads, right, which would be our ways, from this verse, you can't see anything that's happening up on those roads. Like God is setting up all sorts of divine surprises. He's setting up breakthroughs for us. He has got plans and thoughts going on that we have no idea about, literally have no control over in the best way. But at the same time, from those overpasses, if you were looking down, you can see everything that's going on the lower roads. And like the Lord is so familiar with our ways and our attempts in a merciful way. He sees our thoughts, he sees our ways, he hears our cries, he knows our emotions. And so he knows what we need, he knows what we want, and he can see all we've got going on. But because his ways are higher, he can see that, have plans for that we may or may not have control over or even a glimpse of. Yet he can work them into kind of all of the crisscrossing ways going on in our life. And this next verse really stood out to me. Verse 10, for as the rain and the snow come down from heaven and do not return there, but water the earth, making it bring forth and sprout, giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goes out from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish that for which I purpose, and it shall succeed in the thing for which I sent it. And I thought about, the idea of rain and snow coming down from heaven to water the earth. The earth never, ever, in all of our experience, has spat up rain or snow towards heaven. Like that just doesn't happen. That's so backwards. There's nothing in heaven that is like to be grown, and there's just such a divine order in the way that things are watered and fed with the sunlight and the rain from the heavens, and they grow up from the ground. And oftentimes, God gave me this picture that when we are trying to sit in that place of control, we are trying to take our ideas and our words and use them like rain going up to heaven, use them backwards as if we're trying to will or speak or whatever things to grow that are our plans, right? Our ideas, our things that we're hoping will take root. And this is not the same. I'm not talking about when you're making declarations or when you're declaring his words, because those are his words that you're just repeating. They're not your thoughts. They're not your words. They are his words. And you're partnering with those and declaring them. And God's words will never return void. But often we throw our words up there, our thoughts, our ideas, and that God sees it as as backwards as we would see soil watering the clouds. We're like, what? That doesn't work. That's not going to grow anything. And it was this beautiful invitation, because the very next verse where it's telling us, okay, hey, don't worry about my ways and my thoughts because they're higher than yours. You can't see them. But also don't try to emulate them, because, when you're trying to speak your will and your words and your ways as if they're mine, and you're frustrated when that's not what's happening, then, that's as futile as trying to water the clouds and have something grow. But as God speaks this, he speaks this for the purpose of, verse 12, for you shall go out in joy and be led forth in peace. We, in the midst of our crazy, in the midst of our lack of control, in the midst of what ultimately is setting up for God's way, because when there is no way, that's when God has to make a way. In the midst of that, God is leading us in joy and leading us in peace because we are free from the need to figure it out. We are free from things hinging on our control. We can relax and rely on the fact that the Lord has ways and thoughts and plans to make things sprout and grow in our lives. And that our job is to be listening for the word that comes from his mouth, to let it fall on good soil of our hearts, and to not let the ways of the world or even our own reasoning or our reliance on our own thoughts or ways choke out the crop that would come from it. And so I'm not short and sweet for this week, but I really felt that on my heart of just a message of peace and joy for that person that's feeling out of control. That the Lord's saying out of control is the best place to be, because when you are out of control, when it's out of your hands, it's in his hands. And that in his hands, he has plans. He has words. And I love how those verses in Isaiah 55 compare his words to like rain that will grow things, right? So we have his words, and his words aren't just meant to wash over us and run off. His words hit us and are meant to begin a growth process. And so as we lean into growth and lean into the surrender of, I don't know it all, and I don't know what the answer is, and I don't have control over the situation, as we lean into that and we listen to what he is saying, which isn't always answers, sometimes it's more questions. But as we listen to what he's saying to us and let his words water us, we are growing in the process, and we are able to move forward in joy and peace, regardless of not having control, because we know that the one who does has ways that have a much higher vantage point than what we could ever see. And so whatever situation in your life right now feels out of control, I just bless you in that out of control place. May it be the seed bed for the miracles and the breakthroughs that the Lord is going to do that could not happen if you were in control. And so we look expectantly for what he's growing both in us and in our situations, because we are not in control, but that is a good thing. So this week, take some time with the Lord and ask him to help you highlight what is that area or those areas that I'm feeling out of control. Okay. Because maybe there's something you haven't even really noticed that has just been bothering you kind of under the surface. But let him help identify those areas, and then ask, God, how can I lean into your growth in those areas? Right? Because those are places where we're out of control, but where He is growing and doing something. So, how can I lean into your growth in those areas? And what words would you water me with? Right? Because He sends those words down to water us so that we can go forth in joy and peace, knowing that His will and His ways are going to be accomplished. And so sometimes we just need to receive again the watering of His words. And so ask God to water our hearts with those words specifically for that area or for that situation that are going to allow us to walk in peace and joy, knowing that He's got this regardless of what it looks like. So spend some time in that place with the Lord this week, asking Him those questions and getting that refreshment in those places that feel so hectic in this season. Thanks for spending time with me today. If God spoke to you through this time, visit arrowsofzion.com for writings, resources, and ways to partner with me in reaching the unreached with the gospel. You can also find Arrows of Zion on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. Have a blessed day, and let's meet here next week.